Hello. Welcome to Marvel Time issue number 91. It's been a while, so I have lost track of the numbering. I think this is right. Seems like it's in the ballpark at least. So, consistent with our comic book numbering, I guess. Um, as you can see, I am Mac, but that's not Benji. We've got Kyle here today. And believe it or not, Kyle read these comics.
Yeah. It's the extra time that afforded me between doing the comics coming out on Wednesday and us doing the show on Monday.
Yes,
In
exactly.
that
Yeah.
case, I can find to read 110 pages of comics.
And yeah, you've probably noticed also this is a special time for us. This is not our normal Wednesday show. We will have a Wednesday show still this week, but we wanted to make sure we got a chance to talk about the premiere episode of Miss Marvel, which was what we're going to be doing today, in addition to the comics and some Marvel news. And then we'll be back on Wednesday to talk about the second episode of Miss Marvel and some comics, and probably not a whole lot of Marvel news because it's just whatever happens in the next 2 days. So there you go. But let's jump into our comics for last week. And we're going to start off with Legion of X #2. Kyle, without getting into anything else, tell me everything you know about what's going on in the world of the X-Men right now.
I mean, I know absolutely nothing. I knew like a couple of characters in this book. There was a Beast sighting.
Yeah.
This was one of those where I was reading the dialogue and I'm just like at a certain point just gave up. I'm like, I stopped caring, honestly. I just want to look at the pretty pictures and get to the end. Yeah, definitely not my favorite comic that I read this week. Yeah, just way over my head and could not be bothered to care.
Yeah, and you're not alone there. I mean, we've talked about Legion of X and the X-Men books in general on this show for a while, and we've been kind of in and out on them. And I was lost. I mean, there's just so much happening, so many different X titles, and Legion of X is probably one of the more confusing ones these days. So there's also a major player in this issue is one of the characters from Araco, which is now located on Mars because that's not confusing. And the way that those characters speak, it's almost like you're reading like a fantasy novel, like if you go to a Lord of the Rings or a Game of Thrones or something like that, and you're just like, what are they saying? So yeah, my first note on this issue was just what? Like,
Oh, I knew I was in trouble when there's like breaks in this book with full pages of text. I'm like, yeah, I'm not reading that.
That is a staple of X books these days. It's been going since Jonathan Hickman took over on X-Men. And it is weird. There are times where I feel like they flow very nicely with the story, and then times where I feel like they're forced. I will say a couple of things I liked about this book. You mentioned the Beast sighting. Anytime you get a good fight with Beast, that's usually pretty fun. Especially when he like lets out the animal side of the character a little bit more. So that was interesting. And then this villain is interesting too. I think we only know him as Skinjacker, which is what Nightcrawler's been calling him, and it's almost like he's possessing characters for a while and then jumping from one to the next. So there's an interesting dynamic with that villain, but we don't have a whole lot of information, and there's just so much else going on that it's just too much. There's weird stuff happening with Legion here where he's like in a different realm, and they're making some sort of big decision, and I don't know the consequences of this decision. So there's a lot. There's a lot happening here. Safe to say this is not our pick of the week.
No.
All right, so let's move on to our next one. And I will say I actually had a hard time choosing my pick of the week because I did think the other 4 issues were pretty good. So we're going to talk about Venom #8. Some craziness happening here with time travel, and as you can see, Kang featured on the cover here. What did you think of this one, Kyle?
I liked it overall. I like the premise of it. It was cool to see this kind of different whatever version of Venom where he's got all sorts of cool new tricks he can do. And then obviously Kang part was cool. I did feel like it was a bit drawn out at parts. I'm just like, yeah, okay, this is a long for what there's a difference between seeing a fight in a comic book movie and just seeing one in a comic. And so it felt like it was taking a bit longer than it should. And then there's a thing that I was like, oh, I should save this and have Mac explain this to me. And then I'm like, oh, wait, we probably don't want to spoil the end of the book. So I will have to ask you about this off air. But overall, not my pick of the week, but it was in contention, like you said.
Yeah, definitely in contention, but not my choice either. I like this because it is, spilling out from the end of King in Black, where Eddie Brock is now the King in Black. However, now he has jumped out of the time stream and is meeting with other King in Blacks.
Kings in Black.
Yeah. So he is. There's some crazy time travel stuff going on, and it's fun. It is a little bit complex. I definitely want to go back and read more because we haven't talked about this entire Venom series on this show. So I want to catch up on this series for sure. But I mean, we get a lightsaber fight between Kang and Venom here.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That was funny.
Yeah, I mean, they
were a little bit different than lightsabers, but they were essentially lightsabers.
Yeah, they can call the weapons whatever they want, but that was a lightsaber duel between these two, which is really, really cool. We also meet War Star, which is this new Venom suit in this time period, which is in like the 602nd century or something like that. So something crazy like that. But yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff. This futuristic Venom, war suit is fun. Yeah. So I liked this issue. Moving on to our third one, and we're going to ground things a little bit here. Instead of all the craziness that we've had, we're going to get to Amazing Spider-Man number 3, which feels so weird to say number 3 for Amazing Spider-Man. But yeah, this was very different from some of the other books we're going to talk about here. Everything else was very cosmic and time travel-y and just crazy. And this one is really just a villain talking to Spider-Man in the sewers for, 25 pages.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was thinking. It's like this, aside from the flashback, this really feels like it takes place over the course of 10 minutes.
Yeah.
In the life of Spider-Man, while he's just got a mouth of blood the entire time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I didn't really grab onto this one, but it definitely felt like you could feel the momentum of it in the series. And obviously I haven't read the rest of the series, but you could see that I could, even having not read the other stuff, I could place where this was going to be transitioning to something. And I appreciated it, but it, didn't do as much for me as someone who's not keeping up with the series.
Sure, that makes total sense. I do think this is one, at least of the 5 that we read, this is the easiest one to jump right into and understand what's going on. So I wouldn't say this is the best starting point, but it's also, it's not terrible. You can definitely follow this story. And I like that they kept it so simple. Maybe it was because of everything else we read and, this was sort of a break from the craziness, but Tombstone has never been a real, one of my favorites of the Spider-Man Rogues Gallery, but kind of liked him a lot in this issue, the main villain who, was kind of beating on Spider-Man here. And then, of course, there's some great Peter Parker stuff. He's just, you can really feel the emotion, especially in the last couple of pages in this one. So definitely liked it. Still not my pick of the week, though.
Okay. Well, now I'm a little worried, but that's okay.
Oh, there's probably,
like it matters. It's not a draft.
There's right. There's been plenty of overlap on pick of the week in the past. Let's talk about Thor number 26. This is the 4th part in the Banner of War story arc that's been going on. We've read the previous 3. For the show, didn't necessarily get a chance to talk about them, but just jumping into number 4. What were your thoughts here?
Well, I knew that this was a thing a little bit just from seeing it on our site.
Yeah.
I don't know what led up to this, why Thor is like a Hulk-like creature, but I don't care because this was my pick of the week, and not just because it was by far the fastest read of
Yeah,
any of the books we had, like probably finished it within 5 minutes, if that. Um, I really enjoyed this fight. Unlike the one between Venom and Kang, I felt like this one flowed really nicely. The art was amazing.
yeah,
The Bifrost and that whole bit. And there's also like a little funny thing about Thor Thor Hulk says about the Bifrost. But no, I just really enjoyed this. Curious to know more afterwards. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one.
yeah. I would definitely recommend checking out the previous three in this story arc. And we agree because this is also my pick of the week. I love this one so much. This whole Banner of War story arc has been so much fun. Um, Unsurprisingly, this is Donny Cates, who's been my favorite comic writer for the last several years. So, really enjoying his writing here again. I totally agree. Also, this is the best art we've seen this week, too. Really, really cool imagery throughout this issue. And yeah, a fight between Thor Hulk and Hulk Thor. I don't know which one is which, but it's cool to see those two going at it. Yeah, I want to talk about the whole arc, but yeah, we'll have to do that another time after you get a chance to go back and check out some of the other ones, I guess. Yeah, really, really like this issue. Can't wait now for the finale of it. This is part 4 of 5, so we should be getting the finale pretty soon, and I'm sure we'll be talking about that on here.
Well, hopefully, I mean, this is based on this issue. This is one where if I can't go get the whole physical run because I don't know how long those things last around, maybe if they put out a trade paperback of just these 5 issues, it'd be something I might want to pick up because I really liked the art direction of it.
Yeah, I would think they will too, because this is not taking place just in the Thor title. It has jumped between Thor and Hulk, and I think there was even a different like number 1 just for Banner of War. So yeah, I would imagine they would probably put that out in one collection.
Cool.
As for our final issue of the week, we've got Jane Foster and the Mighty Thor. Lots of Thor this week, which kind of goes with where the Marvel Universe is at right now. This one, very different. We have 2 different Thor stories going on at once, and this one is definitely very different from the one we just talked about. I enjoyed this. I thought it was fun. I thought you got, the craziness of Asgard as well as the fun, groundedness of Earth. So there's that. What did you think?
Yeah, pretty much the same page. There was also some really great art in this one that I liked. I forget exactly which one it was, but there was one that was like, oh man, this would be cool to like almost have on a wall. Like I liked it a lot. I was slightly confused just because it feels like there's a few different timelines or versions of the character happening
Yeah,
here. Another character that I'm like, am I supposed to know who you are? But I didn't, I don't think. But obviously some cameos from characters I definitely know.
right.
But yeah, overall, I liked it, just not quite as much as the other Thor.
Yeah, to explain one thing, there's definitely some weird stuff going on with Valkyries these days. Going back to King in Black, there was some really crazy stuff where Jane Foster went into the realm of the dead and got stuck or trapped by Null. There's a lot of craziness with Valkyries. We'll just leave it at that. But so there's several Valkyries that you see here. There's a few Avengers, like you mentioned, some very recognizable characters. I thought this would be taking place at a different time because, like I said, different story from where we just saw Thor. But at the same time, you have Odin trapped in Mjolnir in both stories. So this is basically present day, if not very close to it. So I liked this story. I wish there would be some more continuity there. The interactions between Odin and Jane Foster that's something I'm looking forward to going forward here, because really cool moment with Mjolnir showing up, by the way, and then Jane learning that Odin is now in Mjolnir is fun and gonna be fun going forward, I think.
And it was cool to see her in that Mighty Thor outfit that looks akin to what we're seeing with Love
Yeah.
and Thunder.
Yeah, that's been largely unchanged, aside from a few little details here and there since she, debuted as Thor. So, one of the few consistent comic book costumes. So, yeah, that does it for our comics for this week. Like I said, though, we in the realm of Disney Plus, we had a pretty big week for Marvel, which it's not just Marvel because we got Obi-Wan going on as well, and it's crazy to have a Marvel and Star Wars show overlapping like this.
It
Um,
really just shows where my allegiances are because I'm like, nope, we got up early and would watch the Obi-Wans when it was just Obi-Wan, but
yeah,
now I know tomorrow, or not tomorrow, but Wednesday when we get up, we're gonna watch Ms. Marvel first, and Obi-Wan can wait a few hours.
yeah, that's going to be the case for me, unless I squeeze Obi-Wan in before working too, but we'll see. But yeah, let's talk about this first episode. Um, I will preface this by saying there's a new episode of the Zacks of Life podcast out right now that where Kyle and I went way in depth on this episode. So you can check that out if you want more. If this discussion we're about to have right now isn't as satisfying as you hoped, there's going to be plenty more on Zacks of Life as we break down every episode every week. So check that out. But let's talk about Miss Marvel. It's funny asking you what you thought about the episode because we had a very lengthy conversation already. But what did you think about the episode?
I enjoyed it. As we said, I love the energy of it. I love the style of it, both in terms of like the art direction, the cinematography, the over the top animated parts that they put in to it. Reminds me a bit of Scott Pilgrim versus the World. And I like her as a character and the dynamics between her and her family and her best friend. And I'm, as someone who's not terribly familiar with Ms. Marvel, it was cool to see this initial version of her powers that I'm used, and I look forward to learning more about what she can do as she learns more about what she can do.
Yeah, you bring up a good point there. I think this show works very well for both people who are just being introduced to Miss Marvel and fans of her from the comics. I think this show does enough to basically feel like it was lifted right off of the pages of the comics, and yet you are introduced to this character, perfectly for fans who are not familiar with her. I can't get enough of Iman Vellani right now. She is just my favorite. I just watching all of her interviews on red carpets and things like that. She is hilarious and so into playing this character and such a Marvel nerd. People love Kamala Khan because she is us. She's that nerd that is a huge fan of the Avengers. And Iman Vellani embodies that because that is her too. That she is Kamala Khan. So I think that the casting was so perfect, and I can't get enough of her in this show and in real life now. So I'm really looking forward to seeing more of her with this show going forward. I love that this opened up with fan fiction because that is a huge part of Kamala's story. They updated it for the show, gave her a YouTube channel. We're not going to go through all of the Easter eggs that are featured in that, but I did want to. This is something we talked about on Zacks of Life, but that's a podcast. I don't have a visual component to that, so I get to show it here. There's a quick image of a bird. Oh, that's the wrong one. This is the bird that you see in her YouTube video. And I thought this was a funny little nod to a character known as the Inventor, who's one of the first big villain really that Kamala goes up against in the comics. But he's a clone of Thomas Edison who was spliced together with a bird. And so just too bizarre a character to include in the MCU. But I think this is a nod to the Inventor because if you see, similar look, granted,
Kinda.
a little more nightmarish in human form, but
Well, the her drawing does still have like that Captain Marvel mohawk.
that's true. Yeah, you're right. Well, I thought though like the yellow hair still kind of goes along with it there. And I also just the question marks around the bird, it just seems like there's a little bit of mystery there. So I like that. Yeah, just again, obviously too crazy a character to include in the series, but I like that they maybe gave a subtle nod. What else? I mean, so you talked about the art style of this show, the cinematography and the imagery, like the daydreams and stuff. I thought, yeah, I totally agree. That was so cool to see the way that they did that, because I thought going in, Kamala is such a spacey daydreamer, and they have these these dream sequences that work really well in comics, but I wasn't sure how they could do it in TV, I guess. But I thought they found that right balance. I thought they did that really well.
Yeah, I think probably the best example is the scene where her and Bruno are kind of brainstorming ideas for
Yeah,
her costume for Avenger Con, and while they're riding the bike down the street, you see all sorts of drawings and things come to life behind them. That, and then when they're texting each other, just the visual representation of that instead of just looking at a phone screen was
yeah,
really shows you that this was going to be something different.
yeah. I won't go into my rant complaining about trying to read text messages in movies and TV again, but again, you can hear that on the podcast. But I thought it was handled very well in this show. I'll just say that. I want to talk about AvengerCon, because why would I not want to talk about AvengerCon? It looks like the coolest thing ever. The merch, the art, the props, which we'll talk about again in a little bit. So much of it was so awesome, and I feel like they need to bring this to, I guess, just Disneyland, really, but well, specifically Disney California Adventure, because it would be a huge missed opportunity not to, right? Like, it just seems like it lends itself so well to being right outside of Avengers Campus.
Yeah, and to me, I mean, I think it could be more than that. It could almost be like a I don't know if you want to make it like a Galactic Star Cruiser thing where you actually need to like spend 2 nights there, but to have this like level of meta where, okay, it's a Comic-Con, except that in this world, the Avengers are real heroes, and now you guys are going to come celebrate them, and maybe they'll drop in and stuff. Like, that sounds like such a cool um, idea that really could fit what Disney is trying to do as far as like immersive entertainment, that you kind of keep kayfabe and go with it. I think they could do something really cool in that arena.
That would be really cool. That goes way beyond anything I thought they could possibly do for that. But yeah, it's a really good idea. Disney, come on, let's get a Marvel version of Star Cruiser, please. Also, while we're talking about AvengerCon, quick shout out to Ryan Penagos, aka Agent M, who does a lot of the Marvel social media stuff, YouTube stuff. So it was cool to see him pop up as the host of the cosplay contest at AvengerCon. That was a really cool moment.
Yeah, recognized him right away.
Kamala puts on that bangle that she uses as part of her cosplay, and seemingly gives her these cosmic powers.
I was very sad she left behind her photon gloves, though. I felt very bad for Bruno.
Yeah, the photon gloves were left out of her costume, unfortunately. But I want to ask you, I mean, you mentioned not being really familiar with Miss Marvel and these powers, sort of just being the powers that you are familiar with now. But I guess what
somewhat
did you
familiar. I'd say that they were still a bit vague and not quite. I mean, she's just discovering she has them. She had no idea, and so to the point where I almost didn't feel like it was clear whether or not she was helping. Like, I know she was trying to help, but I don't know how effective she was,
right?
Based on the little bit that we saw. So I'm looking forward to getting a bit more clarity and probably more seeing her use them more effectively, I would imagine.
Yeah, I'm it's a superhero origin story, so we're going to see that process of her learning her powers and things like that. But the biggest issue people had with this, well, I'm not going to get into all of that, but one of the big issues people had with this series going into it was the change to her powers. In the comics, she basically just has these stretching and growing powers, and here she has this light energy that she is shooting out. and that was a lot was made of that, being a decision to be more cinematic and just visually pleasing, I suppose. Um, so, I mean, again, you're not familiar with the comics, but I will say for me, it didn't bother me. I think you still got that image of her hand growing and her stretching, and so you still have those elements there. There's just something added on, and I think it makes sense when you're going to mix her in. Her next appearance is going to be the Marvels, where um, she's meeting Captain Marvel, and then whatever we want to call Maria Rambeau now, that if she's Photon or whatever we're going with, but so yeah, I think giving her this power set makes her fit in a little bit better in the MCU. Anything else you want to talk about here? We're gonna end on the mid-credit scene, but was there anything else before we move on?
No, like I said, I really enjoy all the side characters as well. I love the I was mentioning on the show how I liked how her best friend and her parents get along, and I feel like a lot of the times it's a trope to have, especially like kind of overbearing parents like she has, that they would hate any outside influence, including her friends.
Right.
And so it's kind of cool to see how they treat him like a son. And yeah, overall I enjoyed it. I felt like it kind of left you on a, not a cliffhanger in the most traditional sense, but in terms of, okay, now I'm ready to like actually get into this after this,
Yeah.
what is essentially a fairly small story.
Yes, definitely, especially after some of the things we're coming off of. Yeah, this is a very small, contained story, which is nice. And we didn't really mention it, but the energy of this show is so different from, coming off of Moon Knight, which was so dark and brooding. And now we've got this high energy, fun, playful high school comedy show. And I like that Marvel can be so different with its projects, and really enjoying this so far. But let's talk about the end of this episode, the true end of this episode, which is the mid-credit scene, which brings us to Damage Control, and we get Agent Cleary, who we met in Spider-Man: No Way Home, the guy that interrogated, Peter and MJ and Ned and Aunt May, and had that really hilarious interaction with Ned with the whole "half my guys are guys in the chair." Yeah, so it was cool to see him come back, familiar face thrown into the end of this, and it looks like Damage Control is going to be seeking out Kamala sometime in the near future. So, like that little cliffhanger ending they gave us.
Yeah, I'll admit I didn't recognize Agent Cleary, but once you told me that was him, like I knew you would. Very interesting.
Yeah, so I think we're on the same page here. We definitely really like the beginning of Miss Marvel and can't wait for more of it. So I have already seen the second episode. I am dying to get to episode 3 at this point. But also, since seeing the things in advance, I've been itching for more of this show. I think more than any of the other previously. So that says a lot. All right, let's jump into our news, and we'll start with the MCU. And as of today, Thor: Love and Thunder tickets are now available. Kyle, you got your tickets?
I do, but I have to say I'm a little annoyed that they now start screenings at like 3 in the afternoon. I'm like, I can't go to a movie at 3 in the afternoon, so I have to wait until like the 5th showtime. But yeah, I'll be seeing it at 7:45 p.m. on the 7th.
Nice. Yeah, I will say I miss midnight screenings. Going back to those days where when a movie comes out on a Friday, it comes out on a Friday. It just drops at midnight. 3 p.m. screening or the first screening. They changed the date. The movie doesn't come out on the 8th anymore. It comes out on the 7th.
Yeah. And what's funny is they still count those towards Fridays sometimes.
Right. Yeah, so in addition to the tickets going on sale, we also got character posters, which you can see the whole lineup on laughingplace.com right now. Lots of fun character posters, including ones for Tooth Grinder and Tooth Gnasher, the two god goats.
They have their own plush on Shop Disney now as well.
They do, and you might see that on my shelf someday in the future. But yeah, so this is the character poster for Thor, obviously, but I wanted to point out one more, and that is this Gore poster, which I love
Ooh.
so much. Um, I am so excited for this villain. And going back to one more shameless plug for Zacks of Life. This episode is out right now, and we drafted characters we're most looking forward to in the future of the MCU. And Gore was not even on my radar for some reason. I'm so excited to see Gore. Probably would have been one of my draft picks had I thought of him. Love this poster, by the way. The art design is so cool for this whole movie. Can't wait to see Thor: Love and Thunder. July 7th, we'll say.
Yeah.
Other MCU news, we got the announcement that not only is Marvel making a Thunderbolts movie, but Jake Schreier has been signed on to direct. But that was reported as, Marvel found its director. We weren't aware previously that Marvel was making a Thunderbolts movie. So that to me was the big news. And I am really excited about this.
Yeah, it was funny the way they worded it. Like, oh, he's been tapped to direct Marvel's top secret project. This was like, yeah. So if it's top secret, you're acknowledging that this is news,
right? Yeah. So on Schreier himself, not super familiar with a lot of his work. He's done a lot of music videos in the past. So interesting choice there. Not doubting him at all. I totally trust Marvel's choices, but just not familiar with anything he's done in the past. Although he did a few episodes of the FX series Dave as well, which I've seen a little bit of. So Thunderbolts, though, can't wait.
So we know that rap is going to be involved in some capacity.
If we get Baron Zemo rapping in this movie, I'm all for it. Yeah, Baron Zemo is the character I'd be most looking forward to. We've talked about this too with Val potentially building the Thunderbolts. So she's working with John Walker and Yelena Belova. So it looks like we have the core of this team built out here. So I'm really interested to see where they go with this. Let's say MCU adjacent, I guess. We are getting the I Am Groot animated short series. This will be coming to Disney Plus on August 10th. We've known about this project for quite a while now, but I was not aware that it was going to be coming anytime soon, really. So really excited when we got this announcement.
Yeah, it's interesting the way they've been doing things with Disney Plus. We got so many announcements for like that investor day in whenever that was, and probably 2020, or no, maybe it's 2021. I don't know. We got so many like announcements of things that were coming, and now as those are coming, like there's just a lull, and then it's like, oh, it'll be there in a couple months. Right. So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, definitely caught me by surprise. I'm looking forward to this. We're going to follow Baby Groot as he interacts with some other bizarre creatures. So should be fun. And I don't think, something that you don't have to like stress about, like, oh, I missed the third episode of I Am Groot. Am I going to understand Guardians 3? Yeah, I think you'll be just fine. So nice when we get some content like that. Spider-Man No Way Home is coming back to theaters in September for the More Fun Stuff version. So we got Spider-Man No Way Home, the More Fun Stuff version, the musical, the series. I was not aware that there was more fun stuff. There was already so much fun stuff.
There's already so much fun stuff, and I believe I purchased a Blu-ray. Why the hell wasn't this on the Blu-ray?
Yeah, I'm really curious about what else they are including. There was a fair amount of stuff on the Blu-ray too, like as far as bonus features go. So what else is out there still that they have to add to have me? Don't get me wrong, I would consider going to see this in the theater again anyway. But now I'm like, what? Now it's honestly just curiosity. Like, did they only add like a minute of footage here? Or what is this that they're showing?
To me, this could go either way. Because I part of you, like, I'm kind of glad that they're putting it in theaters because you get to see the movie in theaters again. That's a cool opportunity. But there's been times where, so one of my favorite movies is Empire Records, and there was a DVD that they put out called the Fan Remix Edition that like completely, like, it was cool to see once, but then that was the only version that was available for a really long time. So, this could suck is basically what the point is. They could ruin the entire thing by inserting more quote unquote fun stuff.
That's true. Yeah, you're not wrong. They could definitely change the entire movie, but I don't know. I'm just really curious to see what it is that they've got to add to this because this movie already had so much. Speaking of Spider-Man, by the way, we got an announcement today that the villain in the upcoming Across the Spider-Verse film is going to be the Spot, one of the most bizarre characters, and a really interesting choice for this movie. What do you? I mean, I guess everything you know about the Spot basically comes from this image, unless you've read some comics that I'm not aware of.
No, there's a little bit more that I know. Do you know who's voicing this character?
Yes, Jason Schwartzman, I believe, is the name I saw.
Do you know what other movie he plays a villain in?
A villain specifically, I would guess Scott Pilgrim.
Scott Pilgrim versus the World, correct.
I am very familiar with Jason Schwartzman, but
yeah,
Kyle likes to give me
the drummer from Phantom Planet.
I did not know that actually.
Oh, well, he's the drummer in Phantom Planet.
Kyle likes to give me a hard time for not having seen Scott Pilgrim versus the World. I will see it eventually. I will see it before Doobie sees Remember the Titans. Yeah. That's my promise.
Well, I mean, I think speaking of Doobie, I mean, this is great news for him because the Doorman's got to be around the corner.
Right. Yeah, Spot and Doorman weirdly have very similar powers. So, also not that different of a look either. So,
and this is a different Spot, not the 7-Up character from the 90s, right?
Listen, this is Across the Spider-Verse. There's definitely some multiverse stuff happening. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him too. But this is a different character, yes. Schwartzman, by the way, is an interesting choice because I think of him as being sort of goofy, and Spot can be a little bit goofy, but he's also pretty menacing. He has these weird interdimensional powers, so I'm interested to see how he handles this character. I like this image a lot because it tells you a lot about what the Spot can do as you see Miles kicking him right in a spot on his chest there, and you see in the background his foot coming out of a different portal and hitting Gwen. So pretty cool. The art of this movie is going to be so much fun. Into the Spider-Verse was incredible. I'm getting more and more excited for Across the Spider-Verse every day.
If only there were like a video game where you could drop things through portals. And
are you thinking of Portal?
Oh yeah, that one.
We got a schedule for the D23 Expo, and I'm not going to go into the entire thing because we've done that on previous shows. Or have we? We might be doing that on a show
probably later today.
Yeah.
And not a full schedule, just like the headlining.
Yes. Yeah. I couldn't remember when this news broke, if that was prior to the last.
Who knows anymore?
But the one that pertains to Marvel will be the theatrical and Disney Plus panel, which will be on Saturday, September 10th at 10 a.m. They have already said that representatives from Marvel, as well as Star Wars and other things like that, will be present at this, as well as some surprises. So I don't even know. There's so much on the slate for Marvel already. I don't know. I would assume we're going to get like footage for Secret Invasion. Like that's what I'm thinking is like the big thing, but they might announce a whole bunch of other stuff. So who knows? It should be exciting. D23 is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of crazy when you think of how much is upcoming and how much has already come out. Like, I feel like we're fine. Every time I'm thinking, oh, we're going to get into phase 4. It's like, oh no, phase 4 is like got how many projects that are fully out now? It feels kind of crazy.
Yeah. What's funny is when the MCU started, if you look back, you had 6 movies. That was phase 1, and it culminated with Avengers, the first Avengers. And now we're in the middle of phase 4, we think, because we have no end for phase 4. There is no target movie where we're seeing the whole culmination of everything we've seen so far. So, and I mean, if you just look at even at phase 3 is the length of phase 1 and 2 combined, if not more than that. So, and now phase 4 seems like it's even bigger. So it's getting so crazy. We're getting so much content. And who knows what's next?
Well, even for our draft, you're like, okay, they can't have their own project before Endgame. And I'm like, oh, there's still 2 Spider-Man films that have come out since then.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah, it is pretty funny to think of. Far From Home feels like it was so long ago, and yet that is post Endgame.
Still Phase 3, but
yeah, it's true. That is the end of Phase 3. You're right. Speaking of Disney parks, kind of, at the Avengers Superstore, I believe is the name of it. What they're calling it now. It was the Backlot store, and now
probably headquarters or something.
Yeah, something like that. The Captain Marvel display from AvengerCon in the first episode of Miss Marvel is now on display at this store in Disney California Adventure, and it is the screen used prop. So that's really cool. Something you can go check out when you're on your way out of Avengers Campus. Also, by the way, just a really cool store to check out. This is the store, by the way, that I was saying should be turned into AvengerCon in the near future, because why not? And speaking of AvengerCon, that merch, a lot of the merch that you saw in that whole sequence is actually available. You can order it right now. Most of it on Amazon.com. You can find it all on laughingplace.com right now. I want this Mr. Tree shirt. And we talked about this on the podcast too. But I love this shirt so much because, of course, you're going to call him Mr. Tree. The people in the real world don't know that he's Groot. They've never met Groot. So yeah, Mr. Tree. I love that they, stuck so, kayfabe for to steal your word that you throw out there so often.
To steal the word that I stole from something that I've never really watched. So do you think Gigantic Dude is supposed to be like Ant-Man when he's large? And if so, like, they know Ant-Man, so why is he Gigantic Dude?
Yeah, well, I don't know. Maybe you would assume it's two different people.
But he's got the same suit on.
Sure. Well, but if you see Ant-Man, like, you don't.
If Scott has a podcast about Big Me, Little Me, I think
that's true. That is true. Scott Lang does have a podcast these days, so yeah. I mean, you're right, but
maybe that's Scott's turn. Maybe he wants to call him Gigantic Dude.
Gigantic Dude. They do call him Giant Man in the comics for a while, so
yeah, Giant Man.
Right, exactly. Let's see, a couple other things. Sticking to merchandise, this Miss Marvel dress and jacket are available now, and I don't think I have ever wanted a jacket so badly.
Not where I thought that was going.
No, the dress is really, really cool too, but I think I could pull off the jacket a little bit better. This jacket is it's so cool. I haven't seen that in person yet. I have seen the dress at Disney Springs. So it's available in, Disney parks and things like that. The jacket, I believe, is out there too. I just haven't seen it myself. I know they're available on Shop Disney though, so you can find them there. Yeah, that jacket, man, it's so cool. And man, the bad thing about living in Florida.
Yeah, you can wear it for a week in January.
Yeah, exactly, and probably not even the full week.
No, I mean, you can wear it from the hours of 9 a.m. to around 11 a.m. and then maybe again at 5.
Yeah. Sticking with merchandise, we also have these Mighty Thor ears available now. You can find these on Shop Disney as well, provided they have not yet sold out.
They were available as of this morning when I checked.
Okay,
which we actually purchased a pair of these partially to go with the Loki ones that we have.
Nice.
And what's kind of cool is they do kind of match, because on the Loki ones, the side says Mischievous and this one says Mighty. Nice. So when we go to Avengers Campus eventually, we'll wear these. I might wear the Thor ones. She might wear the Loki ones. We're going to bend a little bit.
I like it. That's a pretty cool idea. And yeah, these ears are just really awesome too. So again, available now on Shop Disney. One last thing before we get into a little bit of comics news. Midnight Suns, the trailer for the new video game, which will be coming October 7th. This trailer, did you get a chance to watch the trailer?
No.
It's wild. Midnight Suns, interestingly, is a name of a group of heroes in Marvel Comics. However, that's SONS as opposed to this being SUNS. Not sure where the Sun is coming in with this story, because what we see in the trailer is a bunch of villains getting, well, characters in general getting venomized and symbioted, and then you see our heroes. There's Spider-Man, Wolverine, Ghost Rider, amongst others, taking on these venomized characters, which looks like it should be a lot of fun. Whoa, that's too accurate. You're going to get us a copyright claim. Yeah, this game looks like a lot of fun. I'm interested in it for sure. I'm not a huge gamer. I still haven't finished the Marvel's Avengers game from probably almost 2 years ago now. So, I have some catching up to do, but this does look fun.
I assume this is only like the Xbox and PlayStation.
I believe it was originally going to be a PC game, so I think it is also available for PC, but
not Switch is my point.
No, it is actually on Switch as well.
Oh, okay. Well, then maybe I'll have a chance to play it, because that's the only one we have.
Yeah. So widely available, this game. So that should be pretty cool to see. I'm excited to check it out. And like I said, we'll wrap up with some comic book news. The long-awaited and long built-up Axe Judgment Day, not to be confused with Axe body spray, is coming July 13th. It will kick off with Eve of Judgment. I really like this image they released to tease this, because we've done some. Actually, I think it was a free comic book day comic that sort of started off some of this story. But this quote from Druig here: "The mutants are very healthy, very alive, and full of vim and vigor. Can we do something about that?" So I like that they, Druig is, he's somebody else is pulling the strings. I won't spoil it for anybody else, but he is, at the helm of this here. And this is a really interesting story that I'm excited to finally get into. I feel like it's been built up for a long time now. And again, July 13th, Eve of Judgment will be hitting stores. Also on Axe, we saw the covers for 3 tie-in one-shots that'll be coming from writer Kieran Gillen. They'll be coming in September. We don't have an exact date just yet, but they're going to focus on main players in this story and sort of let you know where their heads are at during this war between 3 different factions of heroes. So you're going to get a Tony Stark comic. Actually, is this Jean or is it Hope? I'm not really sure. They have similar looks sometimes. It looks like it is Jean, though. And then you're going to have an Ajax one as well. So at least that's based on the covers. They might be going in different directions too. But I am definitely interested in that as well. Are you interested in checking out this Avengers X-Men Eternals comic story arc at all?
Wow, that sounds like just based on a little bit I know about those last 2. So yeah, probably not, but
that's fair. I will say the Eternals in the comics have been streamlined a little bit. Lately, they've been sort of pushing towards them following the movie versions of the characters, so that is getting a little bit simplified.
It looks a lot like the movie version of the characters.
Exactly, yeah. But the X-Men, yeah, obviously some crazy stuff. But I do like when we get these crossover events, you kind of can push aside everything from Legion of X that we read can kind of be pushed aside. You can forget about it and just worry about what's happening in these issues. So I am definitely interested, looking forward to this one. There's a lot of great characters involved. So couple more pieces of comic book news. Daredevil, #1, a new run on this character from Chip Zdarsky. So he's going to continue going with Daredevil. I like that this is going to be one series now, focusing on both Matt Murdock and Elektra, both being Daredevil. So it should be pretty interesting.
2 especially coming out better than 1.
Especially coming out of Devil's Reign, which was a lot of fun as well. And finally, speaking of comic characters, following more closely to the movie version of them, we're getting Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings. This will be coming July 20th. By the way, I don't know if I said Daredevil was July 13th. Shang-Chi, July 20th. The last Shang-Chi series wrapped up with a little cliffhanger with these 10 rings. And so now I'm really interested to see where this is going to go. How it's definitely different from the movie, because there's a lot of other circumstances that are very different, and we can't follow that exact story. But really interested to see where they go with this.
So are these going to be the 10 Bengals then?
No, that's the offense that surrounds Joe Burrow.
Oh.
So yeah, that is it. A lot of Marvel news that we just burned through there. And like I said, we'll be back on Wednesday and probably won't have a lot of news then because that's in 2 days. So,
hey, I mean, I was about to say a piece of news, but I might as well just save it for Wednesday when we have no news.
Yeah, and again, we'll be back to talk about Miss Marvel. The second episode comes out on Wednesday on Disney Plus. So, yeah, anything else before we wrap things up here?
I don't think so. We better get off the air so you could tell me who that character is.
Again, new episode of Zacks of Life out right now. You can check that out, and then follow us on Twitter at Zacks of Life Pod, so you can vote on the poll for the draft that we did in that episode. And again, we'll be back on Wednesday, same time. Kyle and I will break down some more comics, and we'll play the fun game of Kyle judging a book by its cover, and we'll talk about episode 2 of Miss Marvel. But until then, bye everyone.